Fox News alert, a third attempt on the president's life, this time at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The night began as it always does, tuxes, gowns, and cocktails. It was Trump's first time attending as president, and Primetime was there.
What's the game plan when you get inside?
Well, the game plan is to just sit back and enjoy an amazing evening.
It's going to be great, highly entertaining, classic Trump.
The legendary roast is going to be amazing.
It may be off the cuff. You know, he's very funny off the cuff.
An epic speech, but an epic Duffy night out.
I'm very excited about The Mentalist.
I haven't been here in years, but I couldn't miss this one.
We came to support the greatest president America has ever had, Donald J. Trump.
At 8:15, President Trump entered the ballroom with the First Lady and the VP.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and First Lady Melania Trump.
The room was packed, 2,000 in attendance, 12 of the 18 officials in the line of succession. Hundreds of journalists, media executives, and celebrities sitting shoulder to shoulder enjoying the first course, spring peas and burrata. On stage, just after 8:30, a mentalist leaned over the president and First Lady mid-trick, trying to guess Caroline Leavitt's baby's name. Then, without warning, pop, pop, pop. An assassin had charged 60 feet through a Secret Service checkpoint, reaching the top of a staircase that led to the ballroom. Secret Service moved immediately. Agents jumped on the president, forcing him down.
The Secret Service grab him, and they're trying to get him to go down, and he's going down, and then they kind of more aggressively get on top of him and bring him down. And the most surreal moments potentially of my life are when President Trump goes down about a foot away from me, and we are side to side staring into each other's eyes from a foot away, looking at each other, and the thought that crosses my mind right then is, oh no, I hope we're not about to die.
Within seconds, President Trump was rushed from the stage. The vice president yanked out of his seat. Agents swarmed the hallways outside the ballroom, screaming at people to get low.
Everybody stay down, stay down.
You okay, sir?
We got one down.
By 8:35, authorities had the shooter in custody. After an exchange of gunfire, one Secret Service agent was shot. He was wearing a vest and is expected to make a full recovery. Inside the room, nobody knew what was happening. Chairs flipped, glass shattered, and guests hit the floor as agents flooded the venue. Secret Service agents climbed over tables to protect cabinet members and high-ranking officials.
I went to the men's room. As I was walking out of the men's room to go down the stairs to go back to the ballroom, all of a sudden, I hear gunshots going off, and I knew there were gunshots. The next thing I knew, I see the gunman, maybe 3 or 4 feet away, shooting, and it looked like he was just firing randomly at the top, firing bullets. And he had a big gun. I don't know what kind of gun it was, but it was a big gun. And within a few seconds, all of a sudden, a police officer comes running up to me and pushes me down to protect me.
That was Wolf Blitzer, who stepped out to use the men's room and came face to face with the shooter. The president was whisked away to his secure holding area nearby, and he was unharmed, posting at 9:17 that he was recommending we let the show go on if it was okay with law enforcement. But shortly after, the White House Correspondents Association president got on stage and made an announcement.
Law enforcement has requested that we leave the premises consistent with protocol. The president will be having a press briefing at the White House in 30 minutes. That is not a joke. And he insists that we will reschedule this event in the next 30 days.
An hour later, President Trump posted a picture of the alleged gunman, face down on the carpet, shirtless. And at 10:30, President Trump and the press gathered in the briefing room in black tie.
Well, thank you very much. That was very unexpected. We very much, and you wanted to too, we very much wanted to continue it because I don't like to let these sick people, these thugs, these horrible, horrible people change the fabric of our life, change the course of what we do. So we held out. You were there. We held out right till the end, but they didn't want to take a chance, and I understand there was protocol. But we're going to be doing one hopefully within the next 30 days or sooner, and I am ready, willing, and able. And I was all set to really rip it. And I said to my people, this would be the most inappropriate speech ever made if I said one. So I'll have to save it. I don't know if I could ever be as rough as I was going to be tonight. I think I'm going to be probably very nice.
The White House Correspondents Association president asked the first question. Listen.
As you mentioned, it all happened so quickly. And I wonder, especially because unfortunately you have experience with these sorts of threats, in that moment when you realized there was a threat and service agents were telling us to get down, can you describe what was going through your mind, how you were feeling in that moment?
That's a very good question, actually. It's always shocking when something like this happens. It's happened to me a little bit, and that never changes. The fact, we were sitting right next to each other, the First Lady on my right, and I heard a noise and sort of thought it was a tray, but it was a gun. And some people really understood that pretty quickly, other people didn't. I was watching to see what was happening. Probably should have gone down even faster.
The president didn't point fingers. He responded with class.
This was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press. And in a certain way it did, because the fact that they just unified. I saw a room that was just totally unified. It was in one way very beautiful, a very beautiful thing to see. We have to resolve our differences. I will say you had Republicans, Democrats, independents, conservatives, liberals, and progressives. Those words are interchangeable perhaps, but maybe they're not. But yet everybody in that room, big crowd, record-setting crowd. There was a record-setting group of people. And there was a tremendous amount of love and coming together.
What exactly went down? CBS reports the gunman was staying at the hotel, took a back staircase 10 flights down to the festivities. A volunteer says she saw him assembling a shotgun in a lightly monitored area before opening fire and rushing towards the ballroom. Because he was staying at the hotel, he got his weapons in when he checked in. A pump-action shotgun, a .38 caliber handgun, and multiple knives. He's been identified as Cole Allen, 31, from Torrance, California. He's half black, half white. On paper, he had everything going for him. Caltech grad, good school, computer scientist, smart guy. He designed video games, tutored students, was actually named Teacher of the Month 2 years ago. He had an engineering brain. Here he is on ABC back in 2017.
The wheelchair brakes tend to lock the wheels, but don't actually lock the chair to the ground. The idea with this is to prevent it from moving at all.
He was well educated and liberal. He donated to Kamala last election, attended No Kings rally, and he was a part of a group called the Wide Awakes, crusading against Trump, billionaires, fossil fuels, you know. His sister told police he made radical statements constantly, always talked about doing something to fix the issues with today's world. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was premeditated. Just like Kavanaugh's wannabe assassin, he traveled across the country to kill.
It was on April 21st that he traveled all the way from the West Coast, from his home near L.A. He gets to Chicago on April 23rd, and has been indicated he arrives in D.C. on the 24th, and he checks into the hotel at about 3 p.m. He stays overnight. He is very much aware that the president and the first lady entered the ballroom at 8 p.m. And it was at 8:40 that he made a decision to rush the ballroom.
This wasn't like the guy who hammered Pauly P. in the head. He didn't live in an old school bus and talk to fairies. He was sober-minded and calculating. Booked the hotel in advance, tracked the president's schedule, arrived early and waited. He's not a low IQ lunatic. He's a left-wing militant. He left a manifesto railing against the president. Stuff you hear from Democrats 24/7.
Those who constantly falsely label and slander the president as a fascist, as a threat to democracy, and compare him to Hitler to score political points are fueling this kind of violence. When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, how different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day? Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many.
CBS, who almost always buries shooters' manifestos, read directly from it to the president's face.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, you know, I'll do this interview and they'll probably, I read the manifesto, you know, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I
these
was
are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
The manifesto makes it clear he wasn't happy with his policies. Not fringe talk. It's what the mainstream media traffics in every day. Hitler, Nazi, fascist, a dictator who's going to end democracy.
He's insecure. He's a wannabe dictator.
He's acting like a king, a despot, a wannabe dictator.
No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core.
We are in an era of maximum warfare. Everywhere, all the time.
We're in a war right now to save this country, and so you have to be willing to do whatever is necessary in order to save the country.
But 48 hours after the third attempt on the president's life, Democrats are like, what'd we say?
And you have, as many of your fellow Democrats, have used some heated rhetoric against the president. And do you think twice about that when something like this happens?
What rhetoric do you have in mind?
Some are even calling Saturday a false flag operation.
I think people jump to that conclusion that it is staged because Trump lies. His lips are moving. The likelihood is he is lying.
You don't want to watch the news about fake assassination attempts or what they're calling an assassination attempt. I think he's forgotten how many times they've attempted this.
Trump's been almost assassinated 3 times in less than 2 years, all by Democrat donors. The latest gunman even wrote a manifesto telling us who he was going to shoot and why. But basically, the head of the Democratic Party says, who knows why he did it? Barack said this, although we don't have yet the details about the motives behind last night's shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, it's incumbent upon all of us to reject the idea that violence has any place in our democracy. Yeah, brave stand, Barack. All violence is bad. Yeah, we know. How many bullets did Barack dodge? No one tried to assassinate him, Biden, Clinton. Bullets are only flying in one direction. Ronald Reagan was shot at the same hotel in '81. They killed Charlie. They shot a hole in Steve Scalise. Rand Paul's neighbor cracked his ribs, tackled him from behind, his own neighbor. They tried to kill Kavanaugh. They firebombed Teslas. BLM burned down entire city blocks. Antifa lays siege to courthouses. Luigi Mangione murdered a healthcare CEO, and the left fell in love. It's not just left-wing violence. There's a fan base for it. 27% of Democrats feel violence against Republicans is justified. 22% of young liberals say they'd be happy if their political opponent died. This isn't a tiny group of people. Large factions on the left are into violence and death. And they're not ashamed of it. But President Trump says he thinks he knows why.
I've studied assassinations, and I must tell you, the most impactful people, the people that do the most, you take a look at the people, Abraham Lincoln, I mean, you go through the people that have gone through this, where they got them. But the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. They don't go after the ones that don't do much because they like it that way.
Trump's delivered so much change, and he's so ambitious about putting America first, the left's livid that they can't stop him. So they shoot him. They're not winning elections or arguments. There's no policy. They're not even debating him. They're just hating him. He's dominating the political landscape so forcefully that they can't even wait until he's termed out. So they try to take him out. They get the base all hopped up on hysteria and goose them up and turn them loose. And then when someone tries to take a shot, they'll back off for a week or two, and they'll pick it right back up. The media themselves could have gotten shot Saturday night. They're putting themselves in danger. Maybe that'll be a wake-up call, or maybe not. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.